Hello and good evening. Welcome to tonight's critical conversation. We have a special conversation tonight because we have an amazing collaboration that's happening. But before we talk about that, for those of you that are new to the platform, Critical Conversations is a place and a space designed for conversations that are going to bridge communities by addressing and exploring topics that don't always feel good, but they enable growth and empathy for one another, which is the most important thing I think we need in today's society. And so tonight I am collaborating with, well, we've already been collaborating, right?
Yes.
So this isn't new. We are collaborating in a different way this time. My co-host from Love and Flow show, if those of you may have not watched, but we collaborate on that platform, and tonight we're collaborating here. Her platform is Coffee and Collaborations, and WordCrumbs Critical Conversations. The CC and CC meet each other head to head. And so I would love to welcome my beautiful co-host tonight, Miss Kimberly Winborn. Hello, Kimberly.
Hello, beautiful. Thank you for having me and
Of
for this
course.
collaboration. I am so excited. I think we're both really giddy.
Yeah, I know, right? A little
Yeah.
little giddy, but that's okay. Before we introduce our panelists and the topic for tonight, for those of you of those people that may not have seen you on this show before, because you've actually been a guest too,
Yeah.
tell everybody a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
Awesome. Absolutely. Well, as she said, Kimberly Winborn. My company is Kimberly Winborn LLC. Actually, it's finance and communications. I do public relations as well as financial services. I'm the author of a book called The Debt Detox. So it's helping people to cleanse the toxic financial habits that hold us back so that we can move forward successfully. So I like to say I help people make money so they can be stewards of it, especially entrepreneurs. And Coffee and Collaborations Media, which Kenya just mentioned a moment ago. I have a podcast under there called
Yes.
the Collaboration Culture Podcast, along with Love and Flow TV. And we
Mhm.
also house the Counterculture Show and have some other shows coming up. So that's who I
Mhm.
am, and I'm excited to be here.
So that's not all that she is, but that's what we're going to share tonight because she does a lot. She does a lot, but so much dynamic collaboration happens within our communities and our spaces. And we constantly have these conversations about like, what can we do next and how can we
Yeah,
collaborate? And you had this idea for a long time.
yeah,
And I think in our last conversation of, well, what can we do together? You're like, let's do this topic. And I was like,
yeah.
sure,
I
why not?
jumped on you.
Right.
Yeah, I jumped. I
You're
was like,
right.
Kenya, I want to come to your platform and I want to talk about this ethos of a Black woman. And
Yes.
she was like, are you sure you want to do my platform? Yes, ma'am. I want to have this conversation here.
Yeah.
And I feel like I just go with what I feel. I feel like this is
Mm,
the perfect place for it to be. Kenya is an amazing, beautiful woman. And I could go on this whole entire show talking about just how much I adore her,
yeah.
but I really feel like this is a conversation that needs to be had. So many times, as you mentioned a moment ago, there are
Mhm.
things that we just don't talk about that we need to talk about, because as a result of those conversations, somebody can have an opportunity to grow. So that's what
Mhm.
it is about tonight. And so,
Yeah.
once again, just honored to be able to share the stage with you, especially with this topic.
Beautiful. Yes. No. And I always like to say, we talk about that growth and that empathy space, and we may
Yeah.
not always see that happen immediately, but as
Yeah.
long as we plant the seeds, and that's the point of these conversations, is planting the seeds. It's not up to us to see the fruit grow or the plant grow necessarily, but we know that we've planted seeds. And so
Yes.
let's move forward with this
Poetry.
topic, the ethos of a Black woman, right?
Yeah.
What does that mean? So, both Kimberly and I are very academically, like, we love academics, right? I teach. She is like, you are always learning something. And
Hmm.
so we've got the definition here for those of you that may be like, well, what is that? What does that
Hmm.
mean? So the ethos is the
Absolutely.
characteristic spirit of a culture, era, or community as manifested in its beliefs and aspirations. This is from the Oxford Dictionary. Second definition, ethos means custom or character in Greek, as originally based in Aristotle. It referred to a man's character or personality, especially in its balance between passion and caution.
Yes.
Today, ethos is used to refer to the practices or values that distinguish one person, organization, or society from others.
Yes.
So, Kimberly, when you thought about this topic, and we have an amazing lineup of women to discuss these things with tonight, what was it specifically that you were like, we have to address this, and why?
The ethos, the essence, the culture of a Black woman is sometimes inexplicable, and there are so many stereotypes,
Mhm.
misnomers, misconceptions. And as a Black woman, I've lived it, but I've also heard several stories from others. And even within our own race, there are,
Mhm.
misconceptions. And so I'm always about how can we come together more as a human race, but especially within the community. And so I said, we have to get some women. We have to talk about the essence, the culture of a Black woman so that we
Right.
can debunk some of the myths. We can help people to understand we're not one specific way or another.
Mhm.
And we can really get to a place where we can have a open conversation about some of the things that we just don't talk about, even within around our tables with our grandmas and them. So that was the reason why I just wanted to have a real conversation. So I hope that we can be able to do that and it can be
Yeah.
helpful.
Well, let's get the conversation started. Let's
Let's
start
do
by
it.
introducing our first panelist.
Yeah.
Sandra, you want to go for it?
Yes, Sandra Dubose, the beautiful black ball queen. She is a motivational speaker on women's empowerment and self-esteem, a singer with an amazing voice, an
Mm.
actress. She's an event host, and she is just a dynamic person. I had an opportunity recently to be on another platform that she invited me to, and all of the things that she does, guess what? In excellence. And so
Mm.
I'm excited to have Sandra Dubose, who was available when I asked her to be a part of this. So beautiful, bald beauty queen.
Beautiful.
Welcome,
Thank you for
beautiful.
being here, Sandra.
Thank you, ladies, so much for having me, Kenya and Kimberly. I really appreciate it. I'm really excited about this topic and the panel of women that you've assembled together because, gosh, do we have a lot to talk about. The whole
Yeah,
thing I keep thinking is, where do we start? So,
right.
Mhm. Yes.
where do you want to start? But thank you, ladies, for allowing me to add my little 2 cents into the.
Absolutely. And a quote that guides her life, and I want to share this, and we can get back to it later, Sandra, is go to the places that scare you. Your power
Mm.
is waiting for you there. I
Amen.
love
I
that.
love that. That is
Yes.
beautiful.
So
And
we
it's
have to
true.
get back to that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So up next, we've got Kiesha.
Yes.
Yes.
Kiesha Cousar. She is an amazing woman who focuses, she's a motivational speaker, first of all, a minister, faith-based speaker, panelist, facilitator speaker, and she's a coach and she works with women. She works with youth. She has an organization called Empower Her Coaching for Girls. She is a strategist and a bold faith mentor, and she is a powerful, dynamic powerhouse. I love following her lives. You guys have to follow
Mhm.
her so you can catch some of these dynamic lives because when something drops in her spirit, she immediately goes into coach. I don't think it ever stops. And you get so many nuggets from her. So, a corporate speaking, coaching, training, and development, whether it's one on one or groups. I'm excited to have this dynamic powerhouse to join us this evening.
Thank you so much. I am excited to be with you all this evening. I said the same as Sandra. I'm like, my goodness, with all of this energy, like, how is it going to be contained? But baby, it's coming out tonight. So I am ready and excited. And look, we don't have anything muzzling us in. So it's go time. And I'm elated to be with you all on this evening.
Amen. Beautiful.
Awesome.
I love
I
it.
want
I
to
love
share
it.
one of her quotes before we move to Kristie. And one of her quotes is, "You can't outthink fear. You'll learn
Mm.
greater by doing than analyzing." So you'll learn greater by doing than analyzing. I love that.
Beautiful. All right. Last but not least is the beautiful Kristie Kennedy Ward. So Kristie and I met very oddly enough. Someone connected us. We were supposed to have a quick session and it turned into a life-changing session for me. And so quickly, I'm just going to read a little bit of Kristie's bio. She's the owner of Queenfidence Global Image Consulting, and her electrifying inspirational gift empowers visionaries with confidence and clarity keys to find their voice, to free their voice, and to look fabulous while finding their voice. She has an amazing voice too, by the way. She has a teaching style that elevates self-perception from stuck to unstoppable, invisible to invincible, and timid to tenacious. Her bodacious belief is a testament that you can shift from mediocrity to magnificence, one daring action step at a time. Hello, Kristie.
Hello, ladies. So good to be here. I'm super excited. And yes, ditto, Kiesha. Oh, my heavens. It's unleash night, honey.
Beautiful. So I'm going to also share a quote from Kristie that she loves. And I'm going to pick this one. Today, you are you. That is truer than true. There is no one alive who is more youer than you, Dr. Seuss. But I love that. And I think it is a great way to start the conversation tonight, because I think part of this is understanding that we are perfectly created the way we are. And despite what society has tried to tell us, tried to put in us, tried to make us believe, that's not the case, right? So Kimberly, you want to start things off by diving right into our first topic in question?
Absolutely. And I love that quote too, Kenia. And it's something that I think really helps children and then adults to remember that you are okay with being you and there's nothing truer than you. And if you have some work to do, let me add, then we got to do the work. But still authentically being ourselves, who God made us, is so much more powerful. And so, Sandra, I want to start with you because we want to ask the question, when you hear of the subject or the title, the ethos of a Black woman, what does that ring out for you? What did you think when you were invited to this? I want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, first of all, I have to say I feel some type of way because everybody else's name starts with a K. And I was
I just realized that.
That's true.
I need me a nice little K nickname so I can be in the play. I'm just joking. But so the ethos of a Black woman. Well, first of all, I was one of the people that was like, what that mean? I don't know what that means. So I was literally looking it up online with my 20-year-old. I was like, what does ethos mean? So we had to it gave us an opportunity as a mother and daughter to just kind of unpack that. What does that mean? And it's just it's such a full and such a rich, as I was sharing with you guys earlier, like there's so much that we can say about the spirit of a Black woman. And I love what you said in your intro, Kimberly, the thing about being misunderstood. And when I think of my experience as a Black woman and all the Black women in my life that I know, I think the one thing that pains me the most is people misunderstand us so much. And just for us to have this platform to really begin to unpack and help people understand the parts of us that they don't know, because at the end of the day, unapologetically, we are complex. It's not simple. Our lives are not simple. And there's so many layers to the things that we carry, not just in the present tense, but just our DNA of our history that we're still unpacking, that's still emerging and showing up in our lives every single day, that we have to contend with and say, is this theirs? Is this mine? Is this my mama's? It's a lot of stuff.
True.
It's so much stuff. So that's how I feel like it's time for us to get into it.
Yeah. I thank you for sharing that. And, just the unpacking and the living experience, it's going to be the same and different for each and every one of us. And that's the thing that really perplexes me often when people categorize people in general, but especially a specific culture, race. It perplexes me. So thank you for sharing your perspective. I want to ask you the same question, Kiesha. And you stated when I got your information a bit earlier, one of the things that you said was the legacy component of Black and brown children and the manifestation of herself being whole and well to model her values and beliefs, to encourage, and so forth and so on. And you talked about the now generation. So can you expand on that and tell us, when you heard the title, The Ethos of the Black Woman, what that said to you, how that spoke to you? You unmute.
There
you
I
go.
got you.
We're good. Okay. It intrigued me because I looked at the complexity of the value and the vulnerability of the Black woman and how that's so necessary for the now generation. It's important that we show the value and the vulnerability. I think most of the time when you think of the ethos of the Black woman, immediately the first word that comes to me is strength, right? So even in that strength, and as we continue to live, I'm not talking about leaving. It's important for us to live our legacy. We have a responsibility to show both the value and the vulnerability, because what's happening is there's a crossroads where we're not showing both. And because we're not showing up and showing both, people get confused and we are misunderstood. So it's our responsibility to go into spaces, being our authentic self and bringing both to the table. I can be strong, but yet I also can be vulnerable. And so if we don't bring it, no one else can tell my story. No one else can tell your story other than you. And even though we may have the same hue, our story is very different. And so when we show up with that story, we're coming with power and being able to demonstrate the value and the vulnerability of the Black woman.
I love that, value and vulnerability. I have so many questions. I'm gonna give the floor over to Kenia because y'all know my mind is always going. Go ahead.
I ask you got a follow-up question for
Yeah,
Kiesha?
I
Go
do,
for it.
because vulnerability and boldness, right? Like, they can be so misunderstood. Like, vulnerability, okay, we get that. But the boldness, the power, especially from a Black woman, can be so misunderstood. It's taken as an attitude. It's taken as, why she always got a chip on her shoulder, what have you. So how do we show up with that power? And I know, and I know it could go two ways. So I'm going to let you guys answer the question. But how do we show up with that power without the other stuff? Is that even possible? You got her, Kenia?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
I initially stated that's not my responsibility.
Yes.
When you're being authentic, you're showing up and demonstrating your assertiveness and your authenticity. I can't carry the weight of whether or not, how am I being perceived, or that's too many dynamics. Instead of you showing up even in your boldness and showing that side of you that has the level of empathy, and even I may be bold, I still can be crying. Who says the two can't mix? And so I think if we take off the lens of, well, I have to make sure for this audience that they can see and understand. Honey, we don't have time to share, explain, exegete, dissect. We got to show up in who we are. And as I'm showing up in who I am, in my boldness and my confidence, baby, I'm still crying. Baby, I'm still telling you that I skinned my knee. I've got to be able to show you that I break an egg. Mommy made a mistake. So in all of these things, we have to speak out in our truth. I can't diminish my passion, because if you think my passion is showing up assertive, right? Assertive and arrogant, these two don't mix. I can still show up authentic, and just because I'm assertive does not mean I have an attitude. There's passion that exudes from me because of who I am. I'm not gonna dismiss who I am for the comfort of you. That's not authentic. So when you show up authentic, whether you're bold, whether you're confident, whether you may not come in with a presence as strong, even if you're an introvert, I love talking to my introvert friends because I let them know you still have a space. It's not the charismatic one all the time. So it's, for me, Kimberly, it is all about you being authentic. If I need to cry right now, I'm going to cry. If I need to holler, I'm going to holler. And I'm going to explain to you, because that's the responsibility. for our Black and brown, as well as our other ethnic groups. They need to see as well. And I'm not going to pull the shade down simply because I have to act or operate a certain way, because that's what you need. I've got to be my authentic self.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, a lot of times we cower, or well, I'll speak for myself. I'm not going to say we, I'll just speak for myself. And in my experiences, because other people were either intimidated, or they didn't know how to accept me, or they didn't know how to embrace me as I am. I carry the fact that my family is from Haiti very proudly now. Right. Before, I had a hard time embracing that. But a lot of the reasons why I feel as though I'm strong in who I am, the way that I am, is because I know my culture and I'm proud of my culture. And a lot of people are intimidated by that strength in who you are, and understanding who you are, and loving who you are. And it may come off as abrasive at times because they don't know how to accept that. But like you said, Kiesha, it is not our responsibility to be holding ourselves back because you can't handle it, right? There's no reason why we should ever be apologetic to embracing our strengths because someone else can't embrace theirs.
Yeah.
Kristie, I would love to hear from you. And there have been a couple of questions that have been asked, but what is your thoughts around the ethos of a Black woman, and then also that act of being vulnerable and being who we are without apology? There you go.
Thank you. Yes, this is a very, very intriguing conversation thus far. And, the first word that came to my mind, ladies, was etymology, because as a lover of words, I think about the root. I'm always going to the root. Where did this derive from? And I go back into my own history, and we are complex. We are so sophisticated, as Black women. There are so many layers based on our history, our generational experiences that have been passed down to us, the thought process, our belief system. So multi-dimensional, multifaceted, multi beings, right? But I thought about, when we look at the core of who we are, we start from when we first came into this world. And I think about something my mother told me, that before I even came into this world, there were several miscarriages. And so I was the one that fought and got through. And I look at my whole life, and it's been a life of fighting. And even going back to the vulnerability piece, what my mother initially, I was very sensitive growing up, and I still am sensitive, and I'm still learning how to deal with all of these emotions. Anything that we see on TV that can trigger us, and I feel. But when I was younger, my mother would say, "You're just a bucket of water." So what happened is I learned how to conceal my emotions. Well, that's not acceptable, to show vulnerability. And so then I take on all of these pent up emotions that ultimately turn into anger. And now I'm the angry Black woman, when I'm just really a woman that's been in pain, and she's just been suffering. She doesn't know how to release this pain. And so you get all these labels placed on you, and then you're trying to figure out, who am I really? So if I go back to the core of my essence as a Black woman, at the core, I'm love. At the core, I'm healing. At the core, I'm acceptance. At the core, I am free. And we have to reprogram ourselves, because if we've been living out an antiquated narrative and it's not serving us anymore, and especially if we don't have these conversations with other women who are awakened, many individuals, especially Black women, will stay stuck in a path that is a dead end.
Yeah. It's so true. And we don't realize we're in that cycle sometimes, right? And we get trapped in it, and we wake up one day and we're like, where are we? How did we get here? And we're lost. We're lost. For those of you that have just tuned in, I see Jacqueline Jeter's here, Jean Cornelius. Thank you for tuning in. We are talking about the ethos of a Black woman. We've got an amazing panelist of women who are here to discuss these very topics. Jay Dwayne is also here. He said, sorry, he's late. That's okay. Late, better than not being here. So thank you for being here. I want to move on to the next question. And Sandra, if you want to chime into this one, what is your biggest societal concern right now, and why?
Wow. There's so many, honestly, as we all do. I'm going to speak very personally about what my concern is. As a single woman, I was married and now I'm divorced. I was married for 21 years. As a single woman, also as the mother of two beautiful daughters who are 20 and 24. And as a women's empowerment speaker and coach, and I work with women all the time, going through different stages and seasons of their lives. The consistent theme that I hear from so many women, especially our young women, is their inability to find suitable partners. Women whose wombs are aching because they want to be a mother. Women who know in their heart that they were meant to be a wife, but the game is crazy out here. They can't find someone who wants what they want. The structure of family, the desire for true partnership, of monogamy and commitment and growing together. It seems like the that value system that we grew up in of mom and dad, and we're working together, we're building a family. A lot of that has been lost in this generation. When we think about the structure that we saw even in entertainment, whether it was the Cosby Show or different shows that we grew up on, it was instilled in us that this was the core. It was grandmama Nim, and the family dynamic has changed so much for so many reasons, whether it is gender and identity, all of these different things that are really, we're mixing into the pot, and we're losing the essence of that core of family. And therefore there's so many women that are unable to find suitable partners and to live out the dream of becoming a wife and becoming a mother. And I worry about my children. Who will they marry? Where are these young men when the fathers oftentimes are not in the home, teaching these young men how to be men, how to be husbands, how to care for a wife and children? It seems like it's just fading. And so that's a big concern of mine, because it's so prevalent and I don't see anything changing. So I don't know. We can't dial it back to the way things used to be. We're in a whole new world, and we have to figure out how do we move from here. But the reality of it is that some of those women will not become mothers. They will not find a husband. And that grieves my heart, because it makes no sense. And I'm like, what are we doing wrong? Because I mean, I don't even know what to say about it, but that's the societal issue for me. That one would be it.
Yeah.
And that's a big issue, right? I have a couple of friends who have voiced and expressed this. Almost feels like a heartbreak.
It is a heartbreak.
To them,
It's a
right?
deep heartbreak, yes.
And what do you say in that case? Because there is something to be said about that innate feeling and desire to want to be a mom and a wife.
Absolutely.
And it's hard to just say, oh, but live out your life in other ways.
Sure, right.
What would you guys say?
I mean, honestly, for me, this is uncharted territory. For me, it feels the same way when we came into 2020 and we were all dealing with COVID. We ain't never been here. We don't know. Everybody's looking around. What we supposed to do? Wear the mask? Don't wear the mask? Go outside? Don't touch the shopping cart? I don't know what to do. Go get toilet. I don't know. We're figuring it out together. And this season, this era that we're in right now is uncharted territory. There's never been a time like this, because there's so many dynamics that have changed the game when it comes to social media, online dating, whether it's married at first sight or 90-day fiance. I mean, you pick it. We're just all over the place when it comes to that. So we really have to learn together, and just we got to keep hope alive. We got to keep hope alive. And I would say we have to keep talking to our young people and reminding them what is true, and of the principles that we grew up on, and the beliefs and the structure that we grew up on, that has sustained us, and begin to really kind of reiterate that. I know they're like, everything goes, but there's a consequence to everything going. As a result of that, we lose out on what we could be having. And so Yeah.
I have a follow-up thought to that because I read an article recently that was talking about the fact that Black women are the group of women that prefer to stay within our race when it comes
Mhm.
to a partner.
Yes.
And so I read another article that was suggesting, I mean, it was in the title of the article,
Yes.
suggesting that Black women began to be open to looking outside of their race for a partnership if they want to be married. And so do you, to back to your societal issue and or concern,
Yeah.
do you think that it is more of a concern for your girls to marry Black men, or just overall in general? Is where does the concern land for you?
So for me, just a man, period. At this point,
Okay.
it's really not about, but I love what you said in terms of Black women being willing to go outside because, as a Black woman, my preference is always going to be the Black man first and foremost. But
Hmm.
unfortunately, it doesn't seem like the pool of available Black men that are qualified. When I say qualified, I'm talking about a man who's ready and wanting the same things that I want. I'm not
Hmm.
talking about just financially and things like
Mhm.
that, but really someone who has the same vision and desire that I have. That's what I'm talking about. But being willing to go outside of the race is just it, that's just where it is at this point, expanding, which is also a very beautiful thing as well.
Yeah.
But I agree with the article in that I don't see that same kind of loyalty to the Black woman from Black men. They are quickly to go outside of their race and go, you know what I mean? They're like, bye,
Yeah.
Felicia, y'all got an attitude. This one over here is much nicer than you. You know what I'm saying? I hear that a
Yeah.
lot as well. So I mean, there's a lot to be unpacked in that. And you had someone who had put a quote.
Yeah, I was going to share. So Jay Dwayne had a question. First
Yeah,
of all, he says that you are a beautiful soul. Many of us share similar concerns as brothers and fathers. What would you like to see in your local community to make a positive impact in this space?
mhm. And so I don't know if that was to me. I don't want to take up
Uh,
all the space. So if
yeah,
somebody,
finish up this question and then we'll ask Kristie and Kiesha their concerns for this society as well.
okay, so what would I like to see positive impact in my
Impact
community?
in your local community.
I think at the end of the day, like I was saying before, it's really about coaching our young people. You can't you can't retrain adults. I mean, it is what it is. Everybody's going to make their decision. But where can we have the greatest impact is
Mhm.
with our young people. And I think it's really about showing them the beauty of family and partnership and growing together and helping them to see the value and not believe the hype of social media and
Mhm.
today's pop culture that is all about having casual sex,
Mhm.
collecting as many bodies as you can and just everything just being loose and there's more. Like, don't believe the hype. There's something of greater value that's available to you when you partner and really give your heart and love and respect women and vice versa. That's for the young men and for the young women. So I
Yeah.
think our greatest impact is really getting into the minds of the next generation and helping them begin to see their value and that they are the future. So you guys got to change the game.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. Kristie, what would you say your biggest societal concern is at this moment?
Well, 5 days a week, I am in people's heads dealing with mental and emotional wellness. And the Black women that I coach, the number one thing that I'm seeing is exhaustion. Going back to the narratives that we've adopted, that we have to work 10 times harder, and then they start working 20 times harder because it's never enough. But what I'm seeing is they are on the verge of serious breakdowns. And I just feel like there is a better way to live our lives. I've been on the other side of burnout multiple times, and that was the reason I woke up and decided to live life differently. I remember decades never going on a vacation. What is that? It was all about the grind. But I believe in having a luxury mindset, which means abundance. There's space. Even just this month, as an example, I took a 30-day sabbatical from posting on social media because this was the last month that I'll be this age before I turn another age, right? And so I gave myself permission to reflect. we're not taught that in our culture. And what we're seeing too, when we think about exhausted energy, that attracts poverty. And I believe that we can live in an elevated energy, and that attracts prosperity. And so even as Sandra was mentioning about the relationship challenges that we have, I believe that you can attract the best mate for your life. I did it myself. I went on a 13-year hiatus from dating because I was tired of getting my heart broken. And so I created space to figure out, one, who am I? And then what do I desire? And my husband had 99.9% of what I wrote out in my vision book. When I have 6 vision books, 22 vision boards, because I don't play around with the mind. And so anything that we're being challenged with as a Black woman, and then collectively, we can absolutely change this story around.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to say something to what you just said, because I just want to put a pin. I want to highlight it. You said you wrote it down. You have vision boards. You wrote it out, and you what did you say? 26 vision boards or something?
22 vision boards, 6 books.
Yeah. So I think that's really important, and that's another question we could ask. I'm not going to ask it, but that's another question we can ask. Do Black women believe that we can have, because a lot of times we haven't seen a lot of the stuff that we're wanting for ourselves. And so I think that's a process that we have to get around people like you all, to go through, to be able to see what is possible, because then otherwise we'll continue to believe that narrative that says the opposite. Kiesha, it looked like your face was saying something. That face ministry is no joke over there, y'all. So
listen,
Kiesha, can you ask?
I'm sitting over here sweating because I'm like, my goodness, let me just kind of come in, because multiple things just went off, alarms in my mind. So I want to combine Sandra and Kristie's and just collectively put them together. So what concerns me societal right now, the first thing that came to my mind is this notion that social media dictates who we are. And it concerns me because not only people want to look at our young people, but our young people are also seeing this trend within grown women and adults. So for me, my concern is that the authentic identity is being misconstrued based off of what we see other people doing on social media. It is leading who we are versus getting back to the foundational principles and the core of her or him. Going back to what Mama and them taught us, whether it's faith-based or not, we are having our identity being birthed or shifted or transformed based off of what we see. And so that concerns me, whether I'm working with women, whether I'm working with girls, whether I'm dealing with mental health, emotional, spiritual, all the dimensions of self. Self is bombarded. Self is feeling bound. Self is burnt out. Self is overwhelmed because self has no sense of self, of her. Self doesn't know what to do. Self is caught up with, where do I go? Who do I get this from? Can I wear what Kim has on today? Can I wear what Kenia has on today? Can I wear this? Can I wear this? And so we have to shift. And I love what you said, Kristie, when you said, I am giving myself permission to stop, because we are perpetuating this when we operate in this grind or this competitive nature. Our children are watching us. And I always say, Sandra, I understand when you said the future generation. I liken it to the now generation. It is no longer the future. It is the now. And if we don't get in the minds, because it's going to take time, y'all, if you look at when we go through our ages collectively, when we go through, we can hear grandmama and them. We may hear scripture. We may hear something. We may hear them humming. What do these children now have that can keep them when trouble comes? When trouble comes, what they gonna do? Twerk it out? Huh? What they gonna do? So there's no foundation. There's no foundation. All they know to do is scroll. Well, what did she say? They FOMO, my fear of missing out. Fear of missing out. We have got to grab another girl We have got to grab someone, bring her or him in, and have intentional conversations to let them know, baby, there is another way.
Come on,
and for me, that is a burden that we have to choose to get outside of ourselves. I don't have time to focus on what Kenya got on. I don't have time to focus on what platform is she standing on. Whether you in the Piggly Wiggly or whether you at Harris Teeter, I don't care. You better grab somebody and teach somebody something that can carry on, that can live now and can live later. Because that's the problem in society today.
Yeah.
Kiesha just took us to church.
Yes, Cash App.
Right. Before we move on, though, Jacqueline Jeter has a comment that supported exactly what you're saying. She said, I think we need to reflect what we say, what we want to see. In talking with my nieces and nephews, they say they hear what our generation says, but do not see us walk it out.
Amen.
We have to gain their trust.
That's great.
Yes.
I've been in a space of emotional, spiritual, relationship growth and disturbance. And one thing that I've tried to do is to not that I tell my children everything, but they have to see that mom is not perfect and that there are things that I'm going through that they may go through. And it is not my job to hide it from them, but to help them, because hopefully one day when they encounter something similar, they're going to be able to say, well, mom said this and mom navigated it this way. So maybe let me apply these nuggets that I've learned from her to be able to navigate it instead of going in a completely opposite direction.
Yeah.
And we have to process aloud.
Say that one more time.
I was just going to say, one of the things that I do with my kids, and they know whichever title mommy has on, whether you are therapist right now, whether you coach, whichever one you are, our car conversations on the way to school is an opportunity for us to unpack their day. I don't ask you how you doing. There's another approach and technique that I do with my kids so that I can teach them how to process and problem solve. If we as parents model only taking to our phone, it's just like when we swipe the card in the grocery store. They don't know, honey, just because you swiping that card does not mean that money grows on trees. So we have to unleash, we have to open our mouth and process, teach our children critical thinking skills. We have to show them the social and emotional learning that we're doing and not just keep it on the inside. It's to dismiss the notion that our mama and them did when we superwoman, baby, I got it. Honey, you just show up as a strong woman. No, baby, I'm going to let you know this egg broke. Mommy didn't make a good decision today. What should I have done? And so they're hearing because I'm modeling it. And I am imperfect, right? Mommy doesn't always get it right. But if we don't open our mouths and live it out, when are they going to see? They're not going to have time to see, because where are they? In school, on social media, and scrolling. We have to teach critical thinking skills. It is a mindset.
Yes,
that is so good. And I want to comment on something you said a little bit ago, Kiesha, before we move forward, because we're talking about basically generational information, the transfer of generational wisdom, and where people are getting their information from, where these youth are, teens, whoever, even us. And so I was thinking the other day, so when we were younger, the leaders, the mothers, I'm going to say, the people that we look to were in their 40s, right? They were in their 40s, maybe 50s, and they were the wise ones. It wasn't the gray haired everybody. They might have had a few strands. All right. So now I'm in my 40s. But most of us in our 40s are trying to act like we in our 20s. So we have to begin to realize that we are that generation that needs to be feeding into these youth, but we're not taking the responsibility because we're twerking and scrolling ourselves, So I love the intention that I love that word, first of all, but there are coaches and mentors. But like you said a moment ago, if one person just speaks to somebody in the grocery store, just speaks to somebody wherever they are, instead of trying to charge them $500 for 10 minutes of time all the time, then more people would be for. Now, I agree, and I believe in coaches and all that stuff. I believe in people getting their ends. But at some point, like you said, Kiesha, we have to give back. We have to realize that there's a responsibility, because there's some seed in us that we got to plant. And so that these girls, these young women and men, can be able to be nourished and nurtured. So that was what I wanted to add to what you said.
I want to, there's some comments coming down, and I want to acknowledge a couple. Jay Dwayne back again. He says he thinks that the deeper issue with social media is the expectation that everything on social media is inauthentic. However, there are several individuals who are genuine. He feels that social media is the new scapegoat, new age scapegoat. He remembers when music was the blame, later music videos. When will self-confrontation be uplifted? I think we do find a lot of things to use as scapegoats, right? We like to place blame and use other things as excuses far too often, and we don't really own up and cop to the fact that we are the problem. Couple other comments here. Jay Dwayne again for we got some more adulting to do. This is true,
but they did too. They
did too.
We just didn't know it, but they did too.
And you know, so I think that's a great point. Yeah. It's, you know, I think we thought that everyone had it together. So now we're punishing ourselves for not having it together at 40 when they didn't have it together. They just weren't transparent and they weren't vulnerable in the things that they were going through. So we were confused. Now we're confused and like, well, why is it that mom and dad had things together and grandma and grandpa, they just hush, push things under the rug, didn't share things. And now we just looking at each other like we all just crazy.
Yeah, I know. I thought my mama had it all together because her roller set was banging. Like, just because she could comb it back and push it forward, and it would be like flowing, I thought she was magical.
Listen, all right. It is 7:17, and I don't want to rush the conversation at all, but I do want to respect everyone's time and want to make sure we cover all of our topics. So the next thing we have on doc is finances. And so, Kimberly, since you are the queen of finance, I'm gonna let you take this.
Well, I mean, just basically, unfortunately, Black women, and one of the things that I talk about often, don't want to skip ahead too much, but I talk about the wage gap. And so when people talk about Black women and our angst in this world when it comes to money, or where we stand in the statistical data, one of the things that they don't want to talk about is that wage gap. And so that is a conversation that I want to kind of put on the table by stating some facts. The data from the survey of consumer finances show that the median Black household had a net wealth of the Black household of $24,000 in 2019, or nearly 90% less than the median white household. But then you got single Black women that have an especially low median net wealth of just $7,000. And then that Black women have a 90% wealth gap. So how much did that contribute to the low numbers in the median Black household, especially the single Black women? So that's a topic that's on the floor. Do we think that Black women have an equal opportunity for financial success as her counterparts or other races?
I want to share a quick story before the panel shares. There was a time in my career, and I think I've shared this on Love and Flow, but came in as an attempt to hire, master's degree. I think at that point, 10 years of experience under my belt. Another young lady, non-BIPOC, came in permanent, making $10,000 more than me. No master's degree. But it wasn't until we had a transparent conversation about the differences that exist in race. She was from Germany, so she had a lot of questions about what it was like to be Black in the States. And we had an amazing, critical, transparent conversation. And in that conversation, we shared our salary because I was convinced that there was a difference. And when I opened her eyes to that difference, she was astonished. And I think this is where, again, I want to place the importance on having this conversation. It's not about, you know, I'm better than you and I make more than you. It's not about that. It's about holding people accountable for paying people their worth and for giving people their worth too. So I'm gonna open it up for conversation. If Sandra, do you have something you'd like to share?
Yeah, so as it relates to the wage gap, I mean, the stats are not lying. I mean, there's no question about the inequities when it comes to the wage gap with women. What I wanted to say, I was really taken aback by the stats that you just shared, Kimberly, in terms of the net worth. But I think the first thing that came to my mind was really about debt, because we don't, you, Miss Detox, you already know I'm not talking to you, Kimberly, I'm talking to everybody else. But how debt rules our economy in America, period. So we are not taught the how money works. Everything is about this instant gratification. And I think Black and brown people especially are definitely guilty and victims almost, of, in that mindset of, as soon as you get, my mama used to say to me, if she gave me $20 when I was a kid, she'd be like, my God, that money burned a hole in your pocket. I need to go buy something. I gotta go
Right.
get me a new CD, some nail polish, something. Really learning how the value of money. And I think that those lessons, practical lessons, are not really being shared with us. And I think that because we are so invested in that instant gratification, number one, that we'll get it now and pay for it later, which is kind of the mantra of what we just kind of grew up hearing, whether it's in the marketing, television, whatever. It's always like, you need this thing, and we get caught up into that. So it's that instant gratification, and then it's just not understanding the pitfalls and the black hole of debt and how we're being preyed on, whether it is our young people coming right out of college, not even out of college yet, and you've got the people with the credit cards that are on campus doling it out like if it's candy. Come on now, come on. It's a system. So we really have to get ahead of the game and really begin to do the work like what you're doing, Kimberly, and helping people understand the pitfalls, because it doesn't matter how much money you have. At the end of the day, if you're spending more than you make, that's it, and that's all. You broke just like me. You
Yeah.
broke just
Yeah.
like me. So there's just so much work that really needs to be done, especially as it relates to Black and brown people, because we so excited when we do get something. Just like you see, whether it's a rapper or whatever, first thing they get, Kanye made a song about it. First thing I do, I'm gonna go buy me a chain because I want to. I want to front. I want to profile for my friends. I need to be able to show them I got this car. We put that value as if these items say that I am successful. But when you get older and you learn how successful people really operate, the man with the money is not the one who's flossing it. He got on some tennis shoes that he's had for the past 10 years because he know what he got in the bank.
Yeah.
So we have to really begin to understand, how does this work? And we just have and that's why the work we all do is so important, because it just takes ordinary people just like us who have a passion for seeing the world different. And we take our mantle, we take the little bit that we got, and we say, we're going to make a change right where I'm at. And whoever I can reach, I'm going to make it my responsibility to say, God, I reached the one that you sent me. And I think
Absolutely.
everybody who's listening, wherever you are, there's something that you can do. If you just sitting back, watching it go down, that's not it. Everybody has something that they could do to help us begin to make a change with all of these different topics that we're making. And I
Absolutely.
hope that at the end of the day, hearing this conversation will inspire each one who's listening to say, what can I do right where I'm at?
Beautiful.
Absolutely.
Well, before, I know, Kiesha, you look like you're itching to respond. So before you and Kristie respond, I do want you guys to think about this question that Lauren has asked. What financial legacy are we creating presently for the future? I think that's a great question.
It's a daily question. Yep.
Yes. So, Kiesha, Kiesha, if you want to go ahead and respond to your thoughts on that financial gap statistic.
I too was shocked by the stats that you shared, Kimberly. I started thinking, I personally believe that as Black women, millennials getting out now, this is, of course, it's not a stat, it's just my thought process off the cuff, that I believe some of the young adult women that I work with and the young adult women I'm around, they are making money. Money is being made. I think the mindset about money is still in the generation when we didn't have money. So it's the lack of education or the miseducation and the need to perpetuate status. It goes back to what Sandra said, showing, how can I show that I'm making money? And we have the, it's just a spirit of, I've got to show. I've got to show that I'm wealthy. I have to show that I have arrived. And so when we focus on how can we still have our wealth and not, and have a sense of self, of making certain that I am building a legacy, that I am showing where my money is going, that I am teaching other people, in my household. The showman mindset is what is the challenge. Because if there has been a small shift, or if you got the same pension you had, but you're spending more, come on, I said pension. Come on, them under the mattress. Come on. If you still got it, what are you doing? Why is it that everybody has to prove? We've got to prove, which is keeping us in a poverty mindset.
Yeah.
Why can't everybody wear the white tee that you get out of Walmart? I'm not saying don't be who you are and demonstrate, whether it's clothing or whatever. You have a right in terms of your worth and your value. I'm saying maybe shift how, why you got to have 75 new pocketbooks and when you carry the same one. So it's just a mindset of, what are we doing? What are we? And guess what? If I'm not holding Kimberly accountable, if Kimberly not saying, Kiesha, you don't need another pair of shoes. You sitting at the house. You going to pick up them children from soccer. How many times you gonna wear them shoes? No one's holding anybody accountable. You just want to show up. Girl, she was bad. She was bad. But how much debt is she in when she go back to the house? Because she was bad at one time. So she could post it. So somebody could say, girl, she was bad. Girl, I'm gonna be bad in my t-shirt.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to do that.
But that's real friendship too, though. Like, real friendship and real sisterhood is being able to say that and still be loved. But these days people are afraid to say anything because they will not still be loved. And so that also goes back to that. Are we willing to listen when somebody is helping us to be accountable? We say we are, but are we really?
I believe the relationship, if you come into me sideways and you never talk to me and we never have any community together, and you trying to tell me about something, then I may not receive as well from you. Are you approaching me in love and kindness? Do you have my best interest at hand? Are you trying to one up me? It's all of these different dynamics that go into, can I hear you say to me, girl, you got 7 pocketbooks that you just bought last week. What you doing? You can only wear one. And guess what? When you go out and you carry your pocketbook to look good, but you go home broken. What? You go to the house broken. You broken because no one might not have affirmed you. And then you're broken from your pocketbook. Because you're wanting the two things that I'm a hush. You're wanting acceptance and approval. Huh? Acceptance and approval has got people running into debt. When you need to learn to approve and accept thine own self. That's a process. Now I'm a hush.
Kristie over there praising.
Right. Kristie, what you got to add?
Oh, this is juicy. So I begin to think, and I definitely experienced what Sandra was mentioning when I was in college. They were handing those credit cards out like candy, and I had no idea. My mother was working 2 and 3 jobs. My dad was on crack cocaine. So, I mean, literally, I had to wake up and smell the coffee, and nothing wakes you up quicker than debt. And so now I live in a home that's fully paid for, but it was an evolution. Realize, you get all these things because you never had nice things before. And I think about when I was young, and I can still remember to this day walking in the little corner store, and my mother sent me to go get some groceries, and she sent me with the food stamp. And how do you know inside of your body that there's something wrong with this? internally, you feel shame. And so I think what we aren't addressing is the shame that we've experienced around not having, being looked at as if we are poor. And if you are poor, what does that mean? You're less than, going back to these societal labels. And so I believe that there needs to be some healing as it relates to our own money story, so we can get into the place where we can receive more. And I honestly believe that your gifts make room for you. When I was right here and it was at its lowest before those vision boards and I had to elevate my thinking, I was earning $13 an hour. Now I get paid $10,000 an hour for a message. That's a big jump. There are no limits. There are multiple streams coming in my household, but I had to do the work. I had to upgrade my thought process. And so whether the government or the corporate office, whoever it is establishing, this is what the Black woman will get versus someone else. Listen, your mind can transcend all of those limitations. I'm a living witness. I think about one of the high-end coaches that I follow, Rich Lutman. I think I'm saying his name right, but he was talking about how when he first started raising his prices that charge high fees, he said for 11 months, he was holding in his head, I charged $20,000. I charged $20,000. It didn't matter who said it was too much, it was too little. He said, I charged $20,000. Until one day someone asked him, how much would it cost to work with you? He said $20,000. He was very comfortable with that $20,000 because he said it for 11 months. And she said, well, who would I write a check out to? And he was like, now what do I do? You start manifesting, but you've got to believe it, because you will pull in unlimited resources, limitless finances. And so I honestly believe that we can shatter these glass ceilings that whoever said we absolutely can.
Yes.
Sir. I love it. Go ahead.
One thing before we move on, I didn't want us to move on past this without addressing the other thing when we come back to that wage gap, is that I don't believe that many Black and brown people understand that when you go into a job setting that you can negotiate. I think that we miss that, right? Because we were taught you just happy to get the job. Just give me the job, right? And whatever these good people give you, we are grateful. But we miss out on the opportunity where our counterparts will sit there and they'll say, I'm not taking your first offer. I know my worth. They've done their due diligence. They understand the power that they have to push back and say, no, this is the value that I bring to your company. This is what I can show that I've proven that I've done. And I was thinking more like this number. Now go back and talk to whoever you need to talk to. But this is, and at least even if we meet in the middle, but they know, don't take that first offer. Ain't nobody told us not to take the first offer. We was happy just to get the job. So I think that that's something to be said about the wage gap, is feeling empowered when you're sitting in that table to know your worth and to ask for what you know you deserve.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kiesha. I saw the finger.
Oftentimes with that example that you gave, Sandra, many times in the back of their minds, they already know that they have an inheritance that they don't have to need if I sit and negotiate. Right. My negotiation is not trouble. You understand what I'm saying? My negotiation is, there's not going to be any challenge if I negotiate, because I know that there is an inheritance that's already been left for me. So I can afford to negotiate with you. Yes. Many of us, when we come to the table, we can't afford to negotiate with you. Right. So if we can shift that mindset, this is why we have to start building this legacy now, so that when our children go to the table, they know, okay, I can negotiate with you because mama and them, that's the way they used to say it. Mama and them left me a little penny or something. And so I don't have to scramble. Because when I go to the table, I can be comfortable in knowing that, guess what, whether you do or don't, I know my worth, and my worth is not hinged upon whether or not you move. If you don't move, it's okay, because guess what, the 11,000, I mean, I make, what did the man say? 11, what did 20,000?
20,000.
20,000. We need, that's a principle. Y'all catch it right now. You need to go ahead and teach your children to go ahead and say something. What is it? What is it that you were? Because our children are not prepared for that.
That part.
That's a teachable moment.
Yes.
Right there, a living principle. We have to make things active and applicable to now. Do your children know? Let my babies come here in this house. You're going to have a number before this night is over. You're going to be able to say a number.
Right.
Because we take things, there needs to be no homework. You take it right now and apply.
Yeah.
The knowledge and the application. Knowledge is power. But without application, what is it?
Not enough.
Nothing.
So good.
So good. You know, no, because I always say this, and people are like, Kenia, it's not about that. It is about this. It is that slave mentality that keeps creeping up every single time we're in a space where we should assert ourselves and assert our confidence. And that little voice is like, but you're not good enough for that. You are not good enough for this opportunity. You should not ask for that salary increase. You shouldn't go look for another job. You shouldn't quit your job without another job because you're not going to find another one. It's that voice that keeps creeping up. And we aren't far removed from those generations that kept hearing that. So, you know, it's about time we stop with that narrative and just shed that mentality and really not carry it on to these children, to this next generation, because we're going to continue to see our race, our people in this cycle of defeat. And it's going to be harder and harder to get out of if we don't. So it is 7:36. I really want to talk about hair and body. We've got two more topics that we were slated to talk about tonight, and that was health, women's health, and then our hair and our bodies. And so I don't know if there's a consensus. Maybe we can kind of mix the two together, but I'm gonna read the statistic that we found. But heart disease is known as the Black woman's #1 health enemy, right? And so one of the questions that we have here is, you know, we find ourselves dying younger and younger from heart disease, but you know, why, what are the contributing factors? Why are we dying so young? I'm gonna put a pin there and go on to that topic of our hair and our bodies, but then we also have the topic of that angry Black woman that we touched on before. Yes, we do need a part 2 discussion, Jada Wayne. Jada Wayne said we need a part 2 discussion. We just might. But Black women in America, and of course, most recently, we have the infamous slap heard around the world, okay, over a joke dealing with a Black woman's hair. But you know, we have the reputation for spending more money on cosmetic services, including hair and nails, and as more than any other race. So what is the big deal about hair? What is the defining factor of self-worth? Are we trying to be white when we wear our hair straight? When, you know, for years I relaxed my hair, and I love to see here all the naturalness. I would love to go to Sandra and Kiesha and talk about shaving your head. I would love to jump there if you guys are okay with that.
Sure. So I'll start, Kiesha. So for me, I have alopecia areata, which is the same autoimmune disease that Jada Pinkett Smith has. So I definitely had a lot of feeling around the slap, the infamous slap. But more importantly than the slap, I mean, the slap, we could talk all day about the slap because that was crazy. Let's just put that to the side. Let's focus. We'll be here all night talking about the slap and the crazy men around that. But let's talk about the hair and the whole undercurrent of what that was supposedly really all about. I say supposedly because there was a lot of other stuff that really led for him to make that kind of action. Yeah, that was anyway. But as a woman living with alopecia, connecting myself to Jada's experience, which, you know, I think, you know, at the end of the day, people can say so many things like, oh, well, she looks beautiful. She doesn't look like she's in pain, right? She's, you know, she wears, you know, you don't know. What I will say about that is that you don't know what a woman is carrying. And just because we're smiling and we're in Hollywood and you make it look fabulous, that speaks nothing to what a woman is really feeling inside. And the only person who really knows what's really going on inside of her heart and what's happening in the privacy of their bedroom when she lays down in the middle of the night, and who's laying next to her, her person that she leans on when she's dealing with these things, he would be the only one that really knows the pain that she's going through. So we can't go by what we see, because we're talking Hollywood, and we put on our face every single day to go to work and do the things that we have to do. And as a woman living with alopecia for over 20 years, I got through it in the very beginning stages by putting on that face. But I know for a fact, at the time that I was married, my husband caught hell because I was in hell. Right? So the person that's closest to you, a lot of times they're the ones that you take it out on, because you know that you can, whether it's your children, whether it's your significant other, because they love you, whether it's your parent. How many times do our kids, they're angry with the world, and they come home from school and they're barking at us. They give us the attitude because they know that our love is unconditional. So we don't know how she's really doing, is my point. So I think there's always needs to be some sensitivity when we're talking to someone who's having a health concern. The experience is very different. When you choose to cut your hair off, there's power in that, and you're making a decision to say, this is how I want to look. You own it, you embrace it because you chose it. It's very different when you have a health issue that's happening and you don't have any control over what's happening to you. You're scared. There's nothing you could do about it. There is no cure medically. And so there's a lot of fears that come into play when it comes to this autoimmune disease. Am I going to lose my eyebrows? Am I going to lose all the hair on my body? Is it ever going to grow back? I mean, this look might be cute right now, but what if it's gone forever, ever? And I've been bald for over 20 years, completely bald. So we don't know where her fears may lie. It's one thing when it's just a little patch and you can make it work for you, but it's another thing when it takes over and it doesn't come back. So there's a lot to be said around that. So I think that it's for all of us to have some sensitivity when we're talking about somebody that's going through a health issue, even if we think, oh, it's just cosmetic. Until you sit in that woman's shoes, you have no idea what she's going through and how she feels. And I would say only Will Smith does. And he's the only one who knows why he responded in the way that he did.
Yeah. Kiesha?
Yes. So for me, I am the latter. I actually chose to cut my hair off. It was not based on alopecia. It was a choice, an informed choice. I always wanted to. Like, I would see women that it was not a health condition, as you said, Sandra. I would see women and I would be like, oh my goodness, like that is fire. I really was intrigued and I loved it. And after I had my son, 2 girls and a boy, I said, baby, and my husband's a barber. That's one of his professions. So I said, wait a minute. And he always knew that I wanted to do this. So it was a choice for me. And I said, you know what? All this hair in here, now's the time. I'm either going to do locks or I'm going to cut it all off. And so when I made that decision, I'll never forget, it was a Saturday morning. We turned up the music. I was like, listen, today's the day. We get ready to do this. And so I was so, like someone said, I was so empowered where I wanted to. And actually what I did, I was natural before, and I had 2-strand twists that looked very much like locks, just my own hair. I went and got a blowout. Nobody knew. I went and got a blowout, and they were like, girl, your hair is so long. It was straight. It was so long. Okay. Yeah, baby, I knew what I was about to do. So within 5 days, literally, I cut it all off. And so I think, going back to your original question, Kenya, health choice, empowerment purpose, because you just want to, health, or because you're trying to fulfill an identity of image that you have in your mind, because whether you're wearing a buzz cut, whether it's for alopecia, whether you got a Halle Berry, whether you got locks, whatever your hair story is, you have to ask yourself, what is the motive? What is my motive for what I'm doing? Everything goes back to the internal. What's your why? And when you begin to find that your why is based off someone else or something else, that's where the real work begins.
So good.
So good. Couldn't said that better. Yeah. It's about, what is your why? Why are you doing this? And the most important answer to that question should never involve someone else.
Yeah.
Should never involve someone else. Kristie, did you have something you wanted to add? What about the health stat? I know we're ending, coming near our time, but did you have any thoughts around health and why women are, well, you know what? I think, Sandra said something really indicative to that, actually. We put on this face, this mask all the time. So we're carrying so much, right? Because we're trying to look a certain way, be a certain way, act a certain way. And the whole time we're carrying all these burdens that are weighing very heavily on our health, our heart specifically, and that strain. I remember hearing a statistic, and forgive me, I don't remember the percentage, but not only is it heart disease, but it's a condition called a broken heart. Women were dying of a broken heart because of how much stress that we were carrying on ourselves.
Yeah.
And that brought tears to my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
That indicates a life of pain, right? A life of
Yeah.
struggle that we shouldn't be having to go through.
And Kenya, I would like to ask if we could do a part two. Like, I would like to see if we can get with you ladies and come back and do a part two. And the reason why is because that is a whole topic that I think really needs to get, some conversation around.
I agree.
I
Yeah.
think it's often something that we don't really, truly, fully talk about when it comes to the Black woman from an accountability and responsibility perspective, but then also our history, like, what is really going on at the root. And I think about my grandmother, and I don't want to floss over that. Like, I don't want to gloss over that, I should say.
Yeah.
And so, if at all possible, I would like to. I didn't have asked Kenya, y'all. Kenya, forgive me.
Well, no, but remember, we were supposed to do 2 parts of this, right? This
Yeah,
conversation. So it just,
if we can.
schedules and everything. But yeah, if you ladies would love to have a part 2, because I didn't mean to gloss over those topics. I just also want to respect everyone's time. And
No,
honestly, my children
I
are
was
staring at me through
thinking.
the window. But yes.
Yeah, no, I understand, and that's why
Yeah.
I was just like, I'ma just ask.
Yeah,
Because
no, I'm gonna take everyone off mute. If you want to chime in and say if you would love a part 2,
Absolutely.
Yes, it's fine.
yeah,
Let's
Yeah.
do it.
let's do it. Beautiful. Well, then, if that's the case, let's put a pin here.
Yeah.
Let's put a pin here. It's 7:47. It's been a great, great time with everyone. Are there any last thoughts or words that you ladies would like to share with those that are watching?
Be
Anything?
prepared for next time.
Be prepared for next time.
And tell a friend as well,
Right.
because we need more people to have access to this level of conversation. A lot of times we're going through it and we don't have a forum to really unpack it and talk about it. So make sure you tag a friend, let them know it's going down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lauren made a great suggestion. And Lauren, if you know any Black female doctors to join the conversation, we'd love to entertain that as well. If you ladies know
Oh,
of
I
one, that
do.
would be great. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kimberly, any thoughts, any words that you want to share before we sign off?
You said Kristie?
No, Kimberly. You.
Oh, okay.
All the K's mess us up.
I know. That's what I heard. Yeah, I do. I want to just thank the ladies for sharing their time with us this evening, for being willing to be a part of this conversation and being so honest and transparent, because I think we've all said that that's very helpful and it's necessary, especially in this season, not quite post-COVID, but at the sort of the end. I think we can kind of categorize it as that of it. So much has come out from the roots, out of the bellies of people's hearts and minds for years. So much that has been repressed is coming back up for people, and we got to have these conversations. So I want to thank you ladies for this part 1, and I'm excited to be able to share with you in part 2, just as vulnerable and just as real. And of course, to my girl Kenya, this was amazing, and thank you for hosting the platform and allowing Coffee and Collaborations to come on over here.
Of course. Now I'm grateful for the conversation. Again, the purpose of this platform of Critical Conversations is to have conversations that bridge gaps, that enable growth, and that provides empathy. Doesn't mean that we're always going to understand or agree with one another, but it does mean that we are open to educating ourselves on topics that we may or may not have any kind of framework around, and being able to further the conversation by bringing it to our personal communities, our personal circles, and now learning about the people that we say we care about, right? And so that's where true change happens, when we take these little nuggets, these seeds, and start planting them within our communities and really, really making the change there. So thank you so much, ladies. I appreciate you. Thank you to everyone who's been in the comments. I know we didn't get to all of them, but I thank you so much for watching. Please share the replay with others, and just, if you have an idea or thoughts or conversations that need to be had, share it with us, because we really do want to have conversations that matter and continue on in this thread. So thank you once again for joining us for tonight's Critical Conversation. I am your host, Kenia Thompson, and until next time, part 2, we will see you then. Have a good night, everybody.